Hello, everyone. This is lesson 39, lecture 3, our final lecture for the term. And rather appropriately, we are talking now about the fall of Rome, which historians have been trying to explain for a long time, usually in association with that date of 476, when the last Roman emperor who ruled the West, that is, including the city of Rome, was in power. And at some point in the late 18th century, a famous historian by the name of Edward Gibbon wrote a work called The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. And he identified four main reasons for the fall of Rome: the uncontrollable growth of bureaucracy and the military, wealth and luxury, barbarian invasions, and the spread of Christianity. And the main reason I bring him up, because it gives us a sense of just the range of explanations people have been giving, right? This is sort of a political explanation. This is maybe an economic explanation. This is a military explanation. This is a religious, cultural explanation. So this is just the beginning of the range of explanations that people have come up with ever since. So now, if it's possible, I would love for you to open your handout, that is handout B, that should look like something like this. It is a great handout. I kind of think it's the best handout of the term because it lists 210 reasons why people have argued the Roman Empire fell. And I think you can, of course, go through the whole list by yourself and think about, how people's individual backgrounds and perspectives might have shaped for their choice of what might have caused the fall of the Roman Empire. I think it's really fascinating because it's actually going to some extent even beyond these four. Especially interesting for us right now, of course, are, for example, health-related reasons that might lead to sort of long-term political changes. So there's just a lot. Choose your favorite. I have quite a few myself. So I think that personally for me, I'm most interested in sort of a slightly more solid explanation that also questions what exactly that it means to say that the Roman Empire fell. And so Arnaldo Momigliano, who is a 20th century historian, said, sort of very simply put, that the Roman Empire fell because the Germans invaded it, and there is really no more to it than that. Sort of giving us a sense that sort of the actual end of the political control over Italy was simply lost because there was an invasion that they couldn't resist, right? And I think it's a very sort of succinct and straightforward explanation for why the empire may have fallen to the extent it fell. But I think even more importantly, he wrote this around the middle of the 20th century. Ever since that time, people have been actually questioning whether late antiquity really represented a fall. And just so you get a sense, in the past decade, I attended multiple sessions at big conferences where people debate, is the quality of life declining, an argument for, saying that it fell, or is it just instead a transformation, right? So things are different. Does that mean they're bad? Change is usually uncomfortable, but what does that mean? And so the argument, as they would say, is that they would look at a slightly larger period, 250 to 800, and they would say, just look how much good has come out of this period. Religions refashioned at this time survived to today: Christianity, Judaism, Islam, pretty big. Codifications of Roman law that we have seen, the Theodosian and Justinian codes, are the root of many judicial systems today. The copying activities of late anti-Christians and their early medieval successors made classics survive. And in fact, the eastern half of the empire survived until 1453. So, should we get super excited about that 476 date or about the whole period? And ultimately, they also point out that many of the invading tribes were transformed as well by converting to Christianity and the influence on their language, also on their institutions. How the story nevertheless unfolds is, of course, lots of changes. So if we look at this map, of course, this is the Byzantine Empire and these new developing empires in the West. We also see the kingdom of the Sassanids developing in Persia, which will create quite a bit of tension. All of that is also changing after the Arabic rise, which will take over quite a bit of North Africa and the south of Spain, as well as further territories. So it really gives us a sense of, how, like, for example, if you look here, the Byzantine Empire is much smaller and is sort of just resisting to some extent those changes. So clearly, whether you are a continuation of Rome or not, that doesn't mean you necessarily are controlling quite as much of the world as the Roman Empire did at its greatest extent. That, of course, nevertheless never stopped anyone from arguing that they were the heirs. In addition to the Byzantine Empire, for example, Charlemagne, who united quite a bit of what is modern-day France and part of Germany and Switzerland, who like to think of himself as a continuation of the Roman Empire. And the history doesn't stop. It lots of examples for that, including in the 20th century, of course, Mussolini in Italy, who was, as you can see from the stamp, a close ally of Hitler, who also claimed that he restored the Roman Empire in Italy. So what's the takeaway from all of this is that the Roman Empire lives on in our mind, right? And so the ultimate answer to the question of sort of why should we study this at all comes from Mary Beard at the end of her book. This is what she has to say. Nevertheless, since the Renaissance at least, many of our most fundamental assumptions about power, citizenship, responsibility, political violence, empire, luxury, and beauty have been formed and tested in dialogue with the Romans and their writing. We, of course, do not want to follow Cicero's example, but his clash with the bankrupt aristocrat or popular revolutionary, with which I started this book, this you recall is Catiline, still underlies our views of the rights of the citizen and still provides language for political dissent. Quo usque tandem abutere Catilina patientia nostra, how long will you challenge our patience, Catiline, which, by the way, she has a picture of a protester holding up on a sign in my native country, Hungary, in the past decade. In addition, the idea of desolation masquerading as peace, as Tacitus put into the mouths of Rome's British enemies, still echoes in modern critiques of imperialism, and the lurid vices that are attributed to the most memorable Roman emperors have always raised the question of where autocratic excess ends and the reign of terror begins. We do the Romans a disservice if we heroize them, if we think of them as heroes, as much as if we demonize them, as if we think they were the worst. But we do ourselves a disservice if we fail to take them seriously and if we close our long conversation with them. Right? So I think that because the ideas, these very key ideas about power, citizenship, responsibility, politics, but even culture that we have seen pop up in this course are all things that sort of we still sort of dialogue with the Romans on. And now that you have taken this course, you have some argument to make that you understand this better, or that you at least have an argument to make about it. Now, to finish the class, I have one more thing to do, and I'm going to get a little bit silly. So given that we have a number of seniors in this class who will not get a very nice graduation ceremony at this time, I wanted to say to Amir, Becca, Jeff, Jared, Darian, Casey, Gianni, and Buffon that you rock, and congratulations to you. Even though it's a very weird time to graduate, you are doing it. So from all of us in the class, I just want to say you rock. And for all of you who have listened to all these lecture online, it's pretty amazing. And congratulations, almost graduates. Please be in touch and reach out anytime. And I really appreciate our interactions at the beginning of the year in person and online and on Zoom ever since. Thank you.